and there's so many great talent. There's so much great talent coming out of CCAD. It's the number one. Well, it's like one of the top 4 schools that Pixar and Disney hire from.
Oh, okay.
And so there's just no place for them to land here, right? So they always have
Okay.
to go and work on the coast or down in Florida or whatever. And so, you know, I was like, man, we've got this opportunity to build
Yeah.
our pre-production house, like literally in a physical location, like right here in Delaware,
That's so cool.
and be like the only animation studio, might be the only true animation studio that's working at this scale in Ohio.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a ton that goes into it.
yeah, I mean, it's a really, I mean, there are tons of little places that are doing like web animation, but I mean, this is like full scale.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I really, the goal is to find a location here in town that we could do the studio, have an awesome creative space, but the front would be an actual like coffee shop.
Okay.
That would be an actual like licensed Roosevelt shop.
Yeah.
Like a Roosevelt.
Yeah.
You know, roaster.
That's something you've always been passionate about, is bringing the community together. That's one thing I've always known about you. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay.
Let people know who you are.
Yeah.
And then we'll just dive in.
Okay, cool. You're rolling.
Yep. Yeah, we're good.
All right. I am Jason Andrew Moody. I am a local lover of Delaware, worshiper, community builder, and I recently became the creator of an animated series called Gabriel and The Guardians. This is the manga. If you don't know what that is, we'll probably talk about it. But that's who I am.
That's awesome. Can I see that?
Yeah.
So you call this a manga?
Manga, yeah. It is basically the Japanese word for comic.
Okay. Okay.
And fans of anime get really finicky.
Okay.
About what, you know, like you don't call it a comic.
Okay.
Because it reads backwards, right?
Yeah, and I'm noticing
so
that
it reads right to left.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we actually recently just signed a publishing deal with a new comic book publisher called Rippaverse.
Rippaverse. Okay.
They are, to be honest, they're actually sort of like this. They were sort of a response to the like super, super woke sort of world that comics was, you know, where it was like they were changing characters, ethnicities, just for, you know, and sexualities and things like that. And so this was like, you know what, the guy named Eric July, who was an influencer, said, I just want to have a comic book company that like just focuses on good stories, isn't trying to appease the agenda of any political side. And so he created Rippaverse, and their first book that they put out like outsold the majority of DC and Marvel books.
Wow.
They sold like
that's
like over $1 million worth of copies.
Wow.
Which is really hard to do in comics, particularly in indie comics. And they like circumvented the comic book distribution industry.
Yeah.
So they didn't go through Diamond, which is like the traditional distributor.
Yeah. Yep.
They did direct to consumer.
Okay.
And they just have had, they're growing. They're a monster. And so
that's so cool.
I had a call with him, like randomly. You're going to hear, this is going to come up a lot in this story. I reached out to this guy, cold messaged him on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because I was like, I just want to know this guy's story. Like, I want to, you know, if I could glean something, this guy's done something really cool. And I'm trying to build a company, and he's built this awesome company. And so it took I was persistent. Like, I messaged him, didn't get a response. A couple months later, I messaged him again, and he did respond. And he was like, oh, hey, I've heard about Gabriel and the Guardians. He's like, would love to, you know, let's hop on a Zoom and chat.
Yeah.
And I did this Zoom with him. And I told my partner, I was like, dude, I don't know what, like, I'm following like a gut thing, like a spirit thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is just like, I felt pressed to reach out to him and try to set up a meeting. I was like, but I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I have no agenda.
Yeah.
And so we got on the call, and I was just like, cool, man, tell me your story. Like, I don't know what we're doing here, you know? And so he told me a little bit of a story, but 10 minutes in, he was like, I just got to ask, man, like, this crazy idea, but like, we just launched our imprint. So we're like publishing other creators' books for them.
Okay.
he's like, what are you guys doing with your comics? Do you have comics? Are you trying to do a manga? And we had actually tried to do like a prequel manga through Angel. You know, Angel's really good at a lot of things, but you know, they're not in comics.
Right.
And so, you know, it was just like they were selling that on their store, but they didn't really have an audience for a comic or a manga.
Okay.
And so we started talking, and, you know, within a month we had kind of come to terms on a deal where, I mean, they're running with it.
That's so cool.
It's going to be a monthly book.
Now, is that from?
So this is actually the one that Angel put out.
Okay.
And me and my team curated this. Okay. Angel kind of paid to get it published and all that.
Okay.
Printed. But it's been reprinted through Rippaverse.
Okay.
And it's issue 0 now of what's going to be an ongoing monthly.
Wow, that's so cool.
Monthly series.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
Super good quality too.
Yeah, it's cool. I did the cover actually.
Did you? Okay.
Interiors or someone else, but
okay. Yeah, that's so cool. So Gabriel and the Guardians. Do you remember us meeting in the basement at Harvest Hills like 10 years ago, 11 years ago? Might have been longer than that. Andrew, because I was thinking Andrew Powers was there.
Yeah.
And Josh was living there at the time.
Oh, I do.
So that
I do
that long ago.
I do remember that in the at their house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
I remember you talking about this then.
Really?
I remember you talking about your passion and what, you know, because this has been basically your life.
Yeah.
Like
so
pursuing and building and developing. So like, I want to know what your process was. Who reached out to who, and how did the whole Gabriel and the Guardians anime start?
So, I mean, and we probably originally met because I was doing something called Burn in
I do remember that.
Yep. Right. And that's how I got to know Andrew Powers.
Okay.
And like Josh would come and lead with Northgate, because Burn 24/7 was a unity sort of movement of worship.
Yeah.
So it was the idea of like, hey, if we can let's get different churches to come together once a month, and if we can agree that Jesus is worthy of being worshiped, we should be able to get into a space together.
Yeah.
And it was really birthed out of, for me, this heart of John 17, I believe, which is, it's either 17 or 20 or 17:20. It's fine.
Just
look it up. But it's basically where Jesus prays for his disciples.
Okay.
And then he prays for those who will come to know him through the message of his disciples. Okay. He's praying for the modern church. And his one cry, he could pray for, Jesus could have prayed for anything. Mm-hmm. Like if you're Jesus and you're going, I know this is going to be recorded. Mm-hmm. I know this is going to be in the infamy of the Bible, the Holy Bible. This is going to be written down. And he could have prayed for anything. But he prayed for unity. He prayed, I pray that they are one, just as I and the Father are one. Mm-hmm. I pray for oneness and unity amongst that church. And he says, and if they are one, the knowledge that I am the Son, like they will then know that I am the Son of God. The world will know. That's what he says. The world will know. If they are one, the world will know that I am the Son of God. Mm. Right. And so what we were moving out of is this idea that, if we just get together in unity, the fragrance of the knowledge of Jesus as the Son of God will be released just by us getting together. And we don't have to do anything other than just get together and be in unity.
Yeah.
And so we were doing that. We did that for 4 or 5 years.
Okay. And these were like three-day events?
So that's Emmaus. That actually kind of came out after Burn. Burn was like 2016, 2015.
Okay.
We were doing monthly, one night, but it was like 6 to 8 hours of worship. Okay. Nonstop worship.
Okay.
And we would invite, Josh Seymour played, Andrew Powers played, Julie Morgan from DCV played. Okay. We had Delaware, DCC was involved, Father's House, all these different, Northgate, all these different churches would come together. Okay. And we did it every month for, I think, 4 years. Okay. And just was consistent in it. And then we started doing Emmaus. It's sort of like my brother-in-law, out of that came the 3-day worship event. Okay. Out at Harvest Hills.
Yeah.
And and that's probably what we were meeting for that possibly when because we were probably beginning to plan the Emmaus thing.
Okay.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
The first year we did Emmaus and we were doing Burn, and then COVID hit.
Okay.
And it was like, you can't gather.
Yeah.
And so I tried the online worship thing.
Yeah.
It was not for me. I was like, this is just not the same. Oh gosh.
You need to be in that physical community atmosphere.
There is something that I truly believe that is a spiritual nutrient.
Yeah.
In the gathering.
Yeah.
When we gather with others, we were made to be in community, designed for it. And I truly believe like when Jesus is like, well, when 2 or more gathered, I'll be there. And what I think he's saying is, I will be there in a way that you can't get when you're alone.
Yeah.
I will come in a way that's unique. It'll be a unique nutrient of the Lord when you gather. And I think we were deficient during COVID.
Yeah.
Especially for those first few months.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We weren't, and I felt it. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel deficient. And so that's when we started our house church. We went like 3 weeks without gathering, and I was like, I can't do this. We're going to just start gathering.
Yep.
Like, we'll do it in our backyard.
Yeah.
And so we did. But also in that time, I just had I think we all had a lot of time on our hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
there was a lot of time.
You really think back to like those first 4 or 5 months of COVID, it was just like,
dude, it was wild.
We were playing a lot of cards.
Yep.
We were like, I don't know if you got into anything kooky, but like our first thing was I went to Michael's and bought a bunch of fabric and we started making puppets. Like me and the kids, we were making like really good, like really like Jim Henson style puppets. Like that's
just to stay busy and kill time.
Just to stay busy and kill time. I don't know. Did you get into anything kooky?
I just watched a lot of TV.
Yeah.
I picked up biking, picked up going to parks, and it was the strangest feeling because like when globally it was announced, you stepped outside and it was empty.
Oh, dude.
Like, it was zombie land.
Dude, yeah, it was like 28 days later.
It was the weirdest feeling. Even I know a guy who filmed downtown Columbus like 2 days after it was announced, and it was like as if nobody was alive.
Yeah.
Like it was so empty. And so I think for me, it was just realizing that, and it's like, what do we do? So like I would edit stuff. I would go out and film like flowers and grass because it's like there's nothing going on right now. Like how do I be creative?
Everything came to a halt, and that was it. How do I be creative?
Yeah.
Like, so much of my creative energy had been going into Burn. We really worked hard to make our burns really unique.
Yeah.
As a artistic expression, a creative expression outside of just worship. We would invite people to come and woodwork or dance or paint. We always tried to have a painter. And so, all that's
cut off
gone. And after I got puppets out of my system, it's like
you should have brought a puppet. I'm not interested.
I should have brought one of the puppets. What happened was Chase. I worked at Chase, JP Morgan Chase. I'd worked there for a long time.
Okay,
it just got really slow. Like just wasn't a lot of work. And so I mean, I was able to crank through my work in honestly like a few hours.
Yeah,
and especially those first few months. Everything grinded to a halt.
Yeah,
and my wife and I were listening to a podcast called The Bible Project. Tim Mackey, awesome. Look it up. It's really, really good. Which camera should I look at when
all the way to
this one?
Yep. Yeah.
You. If you haven't checked out The Bible Project, you should, because it's really good, really rich.
Okay.
But very Genesis focused, actually. I mean, they focus on the whole thing, but Tim Mackey just seems to really love Genesis.
Okay.
And it just inspired me. Like, I mean, as we were diving deep into Genesis, we were doing one of their Genesis like modules. And man, I grew up in the church. Dad's a pastor. I know the stories. But when you really, as an adult, when you come to that text with fresh eyes and through a different lens, through a different perspective, Tim Mackey's thing is like, our job is to understand, to as best we can, not bring our cultural ideas and worldview to the scripture.
Right.
We need to allow the scripture and the writer's worldview to inform us of what they were trying to say. What were the author's intentions?
Yeah.
Not what we want it to say, not what we think it says through our modern ideas and language and culture, but understanding truly who was the writer and who was the audience when he wrote it. And then we can better understand the point and the purpose, the intention, the authority of the scriptures. And so understanding that, I really started to dive into the world of Genesis. What did the world look like? And I don't know, like what in you, like growing up, did you grow up in the church?
Yeah. Okay. My entire life.
What did you imagine when you thought of Noah? Like what came to your mind?
That he was an adventurer and he wasn't afraid to take risks, but he obeyed and listened when he needed to.
Yeah.
But I also feel like for Noah, a part of me wants to think that he was also, on top of like being a risk taker and like a go-getter, he was also very quiet and collective when he needed to be. But I also feel like there were probably a few moments where he was loud and he was aggressive.
Yeah.
And doing what he had to do to get done.
Yeah. He certainly seems to be a character who is both obedient, but like obedient to go out and be charismatic, because he was asked to go and tell everybody, proclaim like, hey, there's a flood coming, like, like something's happening, and he was the last righteous man. This is what the scripture says. He was the last righteous man on earth.
Okay.
But I like, when you think of like, what did he look like? What was the world like around him? I had this like,
he was probably jacked, dude.
Well, he probably was.
He was probably freaking shredded.
He probably was. I've seen your pictures. You guys probably would have hung out. Just getting yoked,
getting jacked, and like,
lifting, logs.
You'd have to be.
Yeah. Oh,
for what he did.
When you think about what he did.
Yeah. You like, he was a brute.
Dude.
Like,
yes. Yeah. He ain't
no softy.
and I think that I brought this context that was very like Superbook and VeggieTales and the things, even like old Hollywood interpretations of biblical narratives like the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur. So I had this sort of Greco-Roman worldview that I put on Noah, in the world that Noah was in. I imagined them in robes or togas.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or some pre-version.
Ben-Hur is a good reference. I never thought of that. Like, I remember seeing.
That's just how I imagined the world. And then you realize that Noah existed in so much of an older world now. The story of Noah is taking place in most likely somewhere between 2000 and 2500 BC.
Okay.
So we're talking, when you look up what the culture was, especially where Noah was, this is ziggurats. This is pagan gods.
Okay.
This is nearly prehistoric, right? We're antediluvian. And so what we know of like that, that era and the idea of the pre-flood world, you're looking at this ancient, Sumerians and the Akkadians and pre-Babylon, right?
Okay.
This is like Paleo Babylon.
Yeah.
And it's just so different than, when I started to look at watch documentaries on ancient Sumer and to see the world that they existed in and how it was not the Bible that I imagined.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was this wild thing. And then you get to Genesis 6 on top of this completely different world where it's like, these are the Sumerians. These are, Nimrod, was the king, and he was the Sumerian king.
Yeah.
And And then you get to Genesis 6 and it says, and in the days of Noah, giants walked the earth. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was the moment that I was like, whoa. Okay, hold on. I know the story of Noah. I've probably even read this before, but never have I thought about Noah, the ark, animals, and giants. Right? It was like, oh, giants are more. That's a David thing, right?
Yeah.
And so beginning to think that this is that the Genesis 6 is painting a world that is so different than what I imagined, but it's also painting an extremely supernatural world where angelic beings, celestial beings, have come down, stepped from their place that they were positioned from governance, right? Like this idea, we see this in the Psalms, we see it in, I think, Ezekiel, and you see it in Daniel, this idea of spiritual celestial beings. And I think that they're the same beings that Paul talks about when he says, our battle is not against flesh and blood.
Right.
Our battle is against the spiritual rulers.
Yeah.
Right. The dark principalities or princes that have been given governance over the supernatural spaces of our world. And so now we go back to Genesis and I believe that Paul was precisely speaking about beings, celestial beings like the Watchers, who had been given some kind of governance, wardenship, spiritual wardenship over our world to watch and govern men. And they rebelled, right? So this is a wild story of what we would in this day probably consider aliens.
Yeah.
Right? Alien beings who watched us from afar, right? They're non-terrestrial, right? As the new non-human entities.
Yeah.
The NHI, right? That's the UAP language.
Yep.
But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about non-human entities who were watching and governing mankind, making sure mankind was not destroying itself.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that, this is where Psalm 82 or 92 comes in, where God is chastising the spiritual rulers. It says God presides over the council of other gods.
Yeah.
It's in Psalms. God, Elohim, presides over the council of lowercase Elohim. And he begins just tearing them apart because they've rebelled. They've gone against what he basically set them up to do.
Yeah.
And he's going, you guys were supposed to rule over men, or not rule over men. You were supposed to govern men. You were supposed to be helping mankind. And instead you ruled over them and dominated them.
Yeah.
And so you'll die like men. Like that's what God says to these spiritual beings. You'll die just like men because of your greed and your lust.
Okay.
And so that's all connecting to Genesis 6 when it says the Watchers, these spiritual beings, fell. And they saw the beauty of human women and took them as wives and procreated with them. And the offspring were the Nephilim, the giants, these giants that walked the earth.
Okay.
Yeah, this whole story, man, was just, I mean, my mind's just.
Yeah, I'm processing everything as you're speaking. And I'm like, this is all going to tie into the creation of Gabriel and the Guardians.
And this, I mean, it's like, this isn't even the Apocrypha. This is the Bible. This is canon.
Right.
This is, I'm quoting canon, right? Canon. This isn't Book of Enoch yet. I do love the Book of Enoch, but none of this is even the Book of Enoch. This is right in the Bible. And so my mind is just, I'm going, man, what if you could tell this? What if you could do what Marvel did and create a really cool, action-packed, cinematic universe of the supernatural landscape of the biblical story. Yeah. Like, what if you could do that? What if you could take these awesome characters, these neat heroes, put them and kind of do like what I think Marvel did with Thor. Like Marvel, now I revere the text, I think probably more than Jack Kirby did with Norse mythology. I think he just thought that it was cool. And I think it was Jack Kirby who created Thor. But I think that what they've done though is they've taken these texts, these ancient Norse texts, and they basically brought Thor and Loki and Odin into the mainstream consciousness in a really cool way through entertainment. Like I've told this story a bunch of times, but like when my kids went and saw Thor Ragnarok, which was a great movie, they wanted to go and get books on Norse mythology. They were interested in Thor, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm going, okay, could you, without being heretical,
right?
Because I honor the text, but could I tell a really interesting action-packed story that lifts the themes and tells the narrative of Genesis and get kids excited about biblical heroes in the same way that kids get excited about Thor?
Okay.
Could I get kids excited about Gabriel, the hero of God? His name means the strength of God, or it can be interpreted as the hero of God.
Okay.
Could I get kids to want to dress up and cosplay and get action figures of Michael, and Gabriel, and these awesome biblical there are heroes. This is like, I grew up in the church and I grew up loving angels. Like just being fascinated with the idea of angels and spiritual warfare. And it's like, it just felt like it had never been done properly, like in a way that was like legitimately cool, and not
the light and fluffy, keep it safe, keep it keep it PG,
let's be careful, and let's not
be careful,
let's not be heretical, make sure that it has so many,
let's not be challenging in what we do, let's just keep it the same all across the board, that way everybody's on the same page.
And with most Christian media, for a long, at least growing up, it was like, and above all, make sure that there's an altar call at some point. Right. Make sure you're bringing you're bringing them to Jesus again. And it's like, okay, but what if we looked at Christian media differently? What if we looked at it like the great masters looked at the Renaissance art? What if Leonardo da Vinci, I don't believe he was interested in converting anybody with the Last Supper. He was interested in painting a beautiful piece of art that reflected something deep and meaningful in this amazing moment of history.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you that people for hundreds of years have stood in front of the Last Supper and they've been moved deeply, and they've probably had spiritual encounters by looking at this amazing piece of art.
Yeah.
But it's not Christian art.
Right.
It's just art.
Right.
Right. It's art, but it's profound and it's full of meaning. And I believe that, I'm sure that the Lord has had experiences with people that have stood in front of that painting and meditated upon Christ and in the Last Supper. And so I was like, what if Christian art could be more like that? And rather than being something that really should be done, that's what preaching is for. Right?
Yeah.
Like let preachers preach, let artists make art,
and
let it reflect the beauty of God, and let it reflect this amazing narrative that we've been given, that is part of our heritage, right? This biblical story. I mean, that's my worldview. As a kid, I wanted it so bad.
Yeah,
like I wanted something super cool that also reflected my worldview. It's why I fell in love with Christian music, because I was the biggest evangelist of DC Talk.
Okay. DC Talk.
Loved DC Talk. It was huge. I mean, my mom would vouch. I literally had a wall in my room. And I'd drawn the back cover of Jesus Freak. Like the three Jesus guys Freak, standing there. And I'd drawn it huge on my wall. And I tell you, man, I was the biggest advocate I was a huge evangelist for that band. I was always playing it, telling people that, non-Christians, my friends that were at school, I'd be like, you gotta listen to DC Talk. They're legit. They're actually good.
They were edgy too.
And they were edgy, and they were actually good.
Yeah.
And because they reflected my worldview, I felt like they got me.
Okay.
Right. But what I didn't have was in entertainment, anything like that.
Okay.
Like in visual media.
Yeah.
In fact, the things that I really liked and the things that were actually really cool, sometimes I wasn't supposed to watch. I wasn't supposed to watch Thundercats. I wasn't supposed to watch He-Man. And then as I got older, my mom, she didn't love Dragon Ball, right? I was a little too old to be told I couldn't watch it.
Right.
But, but that's what I loved. I loved Dragon Ball.
Okay.
I loved X-Men. I loved Batman. I loved Gargoyles.
Yep.
And those and none of those really reflected my worldview though. So deep down, I was like, man, I wish there was something.
Okay.
Even as a kid, I was like, man, you could do like, what if you did a gargoyles style show, but with angels?
Yeah.
Right. With the things in, and it reflected, you know, and so got older. Right. And I really believe that was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, man, I mean, I was in my 20s.
Okay.
Believing like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make entertainment that reflects a Christian worldview, a Judeo-Christian worldview, and takes the scriptures seriously. But it's going to be cool. It's going to be like action packed, and I'm going to make really cool stuff. And you know, and then you realize that you live in Ohio.
Yeah, that's the punchline. But you live in Ohio.
Yeah, like you realize you're
still
like
the greatest state ever.
Obviously,
saying, you know.
But like, you know, when it comes to access to the film industry and the entertainment industry, we're about as far away as you could possibly get. Now that's changed. I truly believe it's changed, and I think that I'm demonstrating that there are pathways. That I think two things shifted. Internet came along.
Yep.
And then honestly, COVID shifted things too.
Yeah.
It changed stuff.
It makes me think of the word access.
Yes.
Like I think after the past 5 years, the word access has just grown in a lot of areas, including in the entertainment industry. Like it's changing because of the access that's being developed for people like you. And you know, spaces like what I'm involved in, like there's just access.
Yep. I think that the tools are in our hands more. Like the tools that used to be guarded, and like you used to not be able to edit video without an Avid machine. I don't know if you remember what an Avid is. An Avid was this $10,000 machine.
Yeah.
That like, that's how people edited.
Okay.
And then the personal computer came along and it got better and better and better and better. And then all of a sudden you had like Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
And that slowly changed the industry over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's put what used to be, you basically had to be in the industry because only the industry could afford the tools to do the job.
Right.
And now all you need is a MacBook.
Yeah.
Right. And you can do it. And so that's a big thing that's changed. But growing up in Ohio, in the 90s and then getting into the early 2000s and becoming an adult, I was like, there came a moment when I was like, oh man, this is probably not going to happen for me. Like this dream of like becoming creating awesome animated series and movies and things like that. I just, it was like, you get to a point, you're like, okay, I'm put away childish things. And I'll get a job. Yeah. And, I'll and I ended up working at Chase for a long time. Chase, I
go Chase.
Go Chase.
Not your interest rates, but go Chase.
Yeah. Don't push them up. But no, Jamie Dimon is causing, I don't know if you keep up, like he's been one of the biggest proponents of back to work.
Okay.
In office.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people that aren't huge fans of Chase right now. But for me, in my career,
it worked.
It was a great job.
Yeah.
It really was. They treat people very well. Great benefits.
Yeah.
And I got to be pretty creative in
the
job. I was a media developer there.
Okay.
And so I built training. And so I got to be creative and I was fine with it.
Okay.
I hate COVID and there was no part of me that was like, I'm so, just creatively, stricken because my job sucks. It was like, no, my job was good. I got paid well. I saw myself as probably retiring from Chase. And from my perspective, I had buried that dream, that childhood dream of creating anything that was going to be significant in terms of the
entertainment industry and visual arts
and so when this all started to happen and I was like, man, I'm like feeling like I got a thing in me. Like there's something in me here. Like there's an idea that's starting to happen. And I haven't really had, I haven't had this for a long time. Like it's been a long, long time, over a decade since I felt like I had something that was like that.
Like that spark or fire.
To be like, I could create something and it could be, maybe there's a way.
Yeah.
And so as it started to grow and I started really, just sketching, man, just like drawing characters. And I hadn't really even drawn in a long time.
Okay.
So I got a sketchbook, started drawing this idea. It started with Noah. Like I was just drawing my interpretation of what I thought Noah would look like. And I liked anime. So I was like drawing it in this anime style.
Okay.
And it just grew, and I started to like bring in the angel characters into this concept. And I was like, what would it look like if you could what were the angels doing during the Noah story?
Yeah.
Like, what if you could tell that story? Like, what if you could see it through the angelic perspective, the story of Noah, but through an angelic lens, right? Through the supernatural lens. Because I mean, they're in the story already. The Watchers, the angelic Watchers fell. Like that's how the story of Noah actually begins. And so as I'm drawing this and I'm telling the stories, I'm getting really excited about it. I'm telling my kids, like with no agenda. Like there's nothing in me at this point that really yet that is like, oh, this is a thing.
This is becoming
something. This could be something. Maybe I could sell it or something, right? Like that wasn't in there. I was just like having fun.
Just
having fun. Getting the kids excited about Bible stories. Honestly. But then there was a moment that came along that my daughter, who was about 14 or 15 at the time, she was like, Dad, this is actually a show about the Bible that I'd watch. And I just like, man, I felt on fire.
Okay.
Like I felt the finger of God on me. That was like, that's what I'm doing.
Was that like an awakening moment?
Yes.
Like this is if I keep pursuing this is going to become something.
It felt like it was a moment where God was like, like remember?
Okay.
I put that stuff in you.
That's so fun.
And
so cool.
I even had this exchange with God. I was like, God, I put this stuff to bed a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like any dreams, like I buried those a long time ago. And honestly, like the Lord responded to me and said, I never told you to bury those dreams.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, whoa. Oh, okay.
Like, light bulb.
And then the Lord was like, let's dig it up.
Yeah.
Like he invited me. I was like, let's dig up your dreams. They're not dead. You buried them, but they're alive. And I was like,
I literally just texted someone yesterday because they were talking about something and I texted, I was like, your dreams aren't dead.
Yeah.
Like they're not dead. Just keep pushing, keep pressing, keep being creative.
And so I think as we unpack the story, that to me, that's the beauty of the story that I'm excited to share with people. I mean, I'm excited to share with people Gabriel and the Guardians.
Yeah.
But I think I'm equally excited to share with people that if you believe in something, you got to believe it.
Yeah.
No one else is going to believe it for you. You got to really believe in what you're doing. But if you believe that what you're doing has value and needs to be done, and that your idea is as worthy as anyone else's idea to be brought to life, breathe life into it, believe it, pursue it. Don't let anyone tell you can't. Don't let the false gates of the industries that you're trying to penetrate stop you. Because I came to find that there were so many things that it was like, well, you can't do that. And I'd be like, well, I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's the certification of me proving I did what I did.
Yeah.
You know?
And so I think that once I felt like I was like, okay, this is like maybe what I was made for. Right. I just and my wife was amazing. Like she saw it. She knew. She was like,
so good.
Oh, something's happening.
Yeah.
And he's got divine inspiration here. And so she made so much space for me. I was just out with my house church buddies, saying hi to you guys. I like to interact with the camera.
Yeah.
My house church buddies, we were out last night and, we were just talking about, I was saying like, I get into the flow state. Like that's like my superpower. Like I can get in a flow state and like just go.
Yeah.
Like for hours and hours and hours. Like I'll get up in the morning. This was especially at the beginning of Gabriel and the Guardians when I felt emboldened and
like boom.
I'm on a mission now that God wants me to do something. And what he told me he wanted me to do was he said, I'm looking for new creators and storytellers to tell my stories.
Okay.
In a way that the new generation can hear it.
Okay.
Can receive it. Like I want you to tell it in their
their language.
In their language.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can do that. You know, I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, I was made for that.
That's so cool.
And so, but my wife just really made space in that first 6 months for me to like, because the only reason it took shape in a way that I could do anything with it was because she allowed me to like have uninterrupted creative space. And so I would get up at 7 a.m. and go down and just start working on it and like making it, crafting it, thinking about it.
And when you say making and crafting, are you talking about like drawings or writing out the narratives?
Yeah, like this is like the time when it's like it's taking shape. And basically I had asked the Lord, I said, what? Okay, I'm in for this. If you want to resurrect this dream with me, what do I got to do? Okay. And the Lord was like, make a pitch.
Oh.
And I was like,
okay,
I'll make a pitch. And I went and looked up what that was. So I was like, I don't really know. Yeah, like a pitch deck, a pitch Bible. Okay. So I went and looked up pitch Bibles. I found, you can find them. If you're interested in doing this, go out and just Google Stranger Things pitch Bible, pitch deck. You'll find it. It's out there.
Okay.
And you see how the Duffer Brothers pitched.
I love the Duffer Brothers.
Yeah, like they pitched Netflix with a pitch deck. That's how the industry works. You pitch with pitch decks.
Okay.
Now you're supposed to have an agent and stuff, which I didn't have. I didn't know you needed that. So that's where I was like, but
so just for clarification, you really started from scratch. Didn't know anything about the industry, just relying on your instincts and trusting in the Lord and partnership. And so you really started from ground zero.
And my wife and I call it it was just a path of breadcrumbs.
Okay.
Breadcrumb. Okay. Follow it.
Yeah.
And then that would lead to another one, and that would lead to another one. We just were kind of on this crazy adventure.
Okay.
As I was, again, she was making space for me to, get up at 7 a.m. and basically like I'd not eat. Mm-hmm. Like I'd work till 11 p.m. at night. Mm-hmm. There were days when I was like, I got to the end of the day and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's time for bed. And then I'd get up and be right back into like I couldn't wait to get up to keep crafting what I was doing. What I was doing was making a pitch deck. I was animating my own teaser. Like I was like, you know what? I know Flash. And I can draw. So like I'll figure out how to make my own concept teaser. Okay. Because I wanted something visual that people could kind of get the feeling of it. And luckily I had lots of experience in media. Yeah. So I knew After Effects, I knew Premiere, I knew, just working in Chase for so long and working in, other, so I knew all of that. I know how to use After Effects and I know how to draw. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make my own trailer, 30, all I got to do is 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yeah.
I made a 30-second concept trailer and I made a 10-page pitch deck. Okay. But I had to draw all the art from scratch. Yeah. So like everything, I did it, and it took a few months to really get this to where I was like, I feel good about it. And then I was like, okay, Lord, I did it. I made it. What now? What? And he was like, oh, show people. Yeah. I was like, okay, like who? He was like, anybody.
Here's the post,
whoever. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, well, you know what? I can go onto IMDb and I can look up producers, right? Like, and directors. Okay. Well, those seem like the people who are in charge, right? As far as I know, right? Like, I was like directors and producers. So if I go and look those guys up and then try to find them on social media, all right, maybe I'll send them a message. This was my thinking.
Just doing whatever you could to get your product out there. And
so I crafted the pitch deck. I crafted an email that was like I could kind of change a little bit depending on who I send it to, but I just kind of had my language that was like my, my best elevator pitch. And please look at this. And I just started sending anybody, I would look for movies that I felt had some kind of like, or TV or other animated series or things like that I felt had some kind of connection. Yeah. And honestly, I would try to find people that I felt had a similar worldview. So I'd be like, look them up, kind of do a little sneaky snooping around and be like, yeah, is this guy
just a little
what's
bit
this
of
guy's
stalking,
religion? What's this guy's faith? Like,
yep.
And if it seemed like they maybe were a Christian, I would be like, okay, I'm definitely going to send it to this guy. So I did that. I sent hundreds of messages out, hundreds of emails out. Mostly I just got back like nothing, mostly just no one looked at it.
Yeah.
And then the ones that did were basically like, you can't do this. Basically though, you need an agent. I can't, I'm not even going to look at your pitch deck because I could be, like sued.
Oh,
like you could sue me if I look at this and then let's say I have an idea like years later, like this is why people have agents. You can't do that.
Okay.
Get an agent, dude. Like that was mostly what I was like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
What I mean? I'd basically be just like, hey man, I'm so sorry. And then I'd go on to the next person.
Yeah.
Like, well,
okay.
The way I looked at it was like, hey, I can't get a no forever. Like statistically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like eventually someone, if I keep doing this, like every time I get a no, I'm getting closer to a yes by statistics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, the way I looked at it, every no was just another step to a yes.
Yeah.
I got to the point I was like, all right, cool. Another no. Maybe the next better chance the next one's a yes. And eventually someone did. Producer of a show called the reboot of Superbook. So there was an old 80s show called Superbook. It was an anime actually.
Okay.
And then it got rebooted in the 2010s as a higher production quality 3D animated series for CBN.
Okay.
Right. And so this guy responded and he was just like, hey man, like I don't usually do this, but I'm just feeling, graceful today. And I'll look at your pitch. He's like, but I'm not doing this as like a representative of CBN.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a guy that
it's crazy to think how the analytical side of things when you're sending out a pitch deck to producers and stuff, because they're very like I would have never thought like, oh, they could get sued if they 5 years later they create something that has relatable to any
relation. This happens in Hollywood.
Oh my gosh,
right?
Yeah, night and day.
And so they have to have layers of protection.
Yeah.
So that, but look, this guy took pity on me, or the Lord spoke to him perhaps.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll look at this. And then he messaged me back. I mean, like as I remember it, it was like 10, 20 minutes later.
Okay.
And he gave me his phone number and he was like, yeah, why don't you give me a call?
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, like my first yes.
Yeah. Like, okay, I'll call you.
So I gave him a call and he was like, what? As I remember it, he was like, what other shows have you worked on?
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't worked on any other shows. He was like, you've never worked on another show? I was like, no. I was like, I work at a bank. I was like, I work at Chase.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not in the industry. I was like, no. And he was like, look, man, like this is a really cool idea. I think you might be onto something. He was like, this is one of for this kind of content. This is like a really good pitch deck.
So your inspiration is
I was
on fire right now. You're on top of the world.
Yeah. So we ended up talking for like an hour.
Okay.
And he was like, I want to help you. He prayed for me.
Okay.
I just want to bless this.
Yeah.
And to this day, we still talk.
That's cool.
We still check in. And I ended up through him meeting my partners that are now a part of Colossal Studios and helped my writer and showrunner also worked for this guy.
Okay.
Our one of our production experts, he worked for them. And so like a lot of the team was built through that connection.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so
I've heard people say, or I know this, but it just takes one person to change your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just takes one connection. Like it can happen anytime, anywhere. It takes one person to change your life.
Yeah. And this guy, I mean, I'll be eternally grateful to him and that he went, you know what? I shouldn't, but I'm going to take the time. I'm going to take the time. And I think he was just, honestly, I think he was being obedient to probably what he was feeling in his spirit. Mm-hmm. And so, but man, that's really where it began.
Okay.
Like, that's where it finally was like, he helped me, make the pitch deck better. He like had real artists like that he worked with, like were like art directors.
Okay.
like look at my pitch deck and give me notes. And I was just soaking it all up.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was ready to learn. And I was like, there was no like offense for me. I was just like,
give me anything you got.
I'm soaking it up. I'm eating it up. And so as that went on, I got introduced to David Cunningham and Al Moore, and they really believed in it. They believed in the idea. They believed in the concept.
Okay.
And they'd always wanted to do something like this. And so we ended up, partnering.
Okay.
And I was able to raise a little bit of money locally, actually.
Okay.
Really, like from Delaware, from people in Delaware, to make the animatic of the episode. Like, so David helped me write an episode.
Okay.
Our pilot. And I ended up raising like 25 grand.
Okay.
To make the animatic, which if you don't know what an animatic is, it's like a rough version of the episode. So it's storyboards, no color, no final art. You've probably seen this before.
It's not a pilot. It's just like a rough narrative of what the show could look like.
It is the pilot. So what it is it's like, you've recorded the lines.
Okay.
You've got temp music in there. It's you're playing out the script as it would be in final animation.
Okay.
But it is just the rough drawings.
Okay.
That are kind of like not frame by frame yet. It's more like every 10 seconds you get kind of a new drawing. That kind of represents the way. But it's actually what is sent to the overseas animation studios, and they use that as a template.
Interesting.
With your design package. And then so it's almost like a puzzle. They take the animatic and they take all the character designs and the background designs, and they're using that as a reference to now do frame by frame animation.
Wow. That's so cool.
Matches your animatic. So, but I didn't even know any of that yet.
Yeah.
I was just like, David was like, he was working on a show called Wing Feather.
Okay.
For Angel Studios. And so he said, Angel Studios is taking submissions. Like you can kind of pitch your idea to them.
Yeah.
It's like, we should make an animatic and pitch it to them. And so I raised the money. We made the original animatic, like the pilot episode animatic. It was short. It was like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
It wasn't like a full length episode. Our episodes are 22 minutes, which is a standard animation episode.
Okay.
Broadcast animation. But this didn't need to be that. Like, we just did what Angel said. Here's the minimum requirements, right?
Yeah.
And so we made it. I raised the money. We made it, put it into what they called at the time their guild. Now their guild is kind of different, but at the time it was just basically people who invested in, mostly people who invested in The Chosen.
Okay.
Angel would give them a new idea and they could decide if they wanted to invest in that. So they had raised.
Angel Studios is all investment, right?
Yes.
Like it's all personal people. Like, and that's how they do it.
So if you don't know Angel Studios, they helped create a show called The Chosen, and they distributed it, and they raised like $20 million.
Millions, yeah.
For this show, or more.
By now, it's hundreds of millions.
Yeah. They've raised so much money for that show through equity investment. So their idea was, what if the fans were also the owners?
That's right. Yeah.
That was their idea. Like, their idea was like, what if you didn't need Hollywood to fund the reason you need Hollywood is because of money.
Right.
Right. And so you need Hollywood money because only Hollywood has the kind of money that it takes and they've got a whole structure around it. And so if you're outside the Hollywood system, funding is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So Angel developed this idea of like, well, what if you just got fans to fund the show?
Right.
And it wasn't a unique idea because there was already Kickstarter.
Right.
But their unique idea was, what if you made it equity investment? What if you made it that they're not just fans, but they actually become owners? They actually own equity in the IP. And so that took off. Like, I love that idea.
Yeah, he broke records. Yeah. I think I remember seeing at one point they were like the highest grossing production company, dominating Hollywood.
And the highest I think the biggest crowdfunding ever.
Yeah.
Like, they were the biggest crowd. Like, they raised more money than any other project had ever raised. And so that became a model for Angel. And we did that model. Once we passed the guild, so we passed the guild.
Okay.
And they did a crowdfund for us, and we raised $500,000.
Wow, that's awesome.
To make our first episode and kind of begin the production for the whole thing. And so yeah, we raised $500,000, and then we went and raised personally another $1.5 million.
Wow.
From private investors.
Wow.
And so our company, we'd raised to date, we've raised about $2 million.
That's awesome.
For the show. We were able to create the pilot episode that's out now.
Yes.
On Angel Studios platform. You can watch it. I think it's pretty good. It turned out pretty good for a group of guys who've never done this really before. So
was the guild the final phase for Angel to come back to you and go, hey, let's make this happen. Yeah. Here's your list of operations. Like, what was that process like?
So they announced, so we passed the guild, and then we were announced that they have this like yearly event called Illuminate where they announce new projects. We were announced, this was in 2023.
Okay.
We were announced, and then that next year, like later that year, we did our crowdfund. And that's when we raised $500,000. Okay. And then we went to work, and it takes a long time to do animation.
And by this point, are you working with people from Angel Studios to create the graphics?
So Angel Studios so this is the interesting part. They are literally just our distributor. We are the whole episode is indie. We did it ourselves.
Oh, okay.
Angel distributes it and markets it.
Okay.
But we made it. And they actually don't get involved.
Really?
Yeah. They Dallas Jenkins made The Chosen. Angel Studios raised the money and distributed The Chosen, but Dallas Jenkins made it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And Angel, I think that they're beginning to get more involved with stuff. So the guy who did Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
So Angel Studios bought Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom was a movie that was sitting on the shelves at Disney.
Right. Yeah. I remember that.
Right. Yep, they had shelved it.
Yeah.
Not despite popular opinion, not really for any political reasons.
Yeah.
It was because it was sitting at 20th Century Fox, and in the buyout, Disney bought 20th Century Fox. It was just one of those movies that didn't get a release.
Right.
A bunch of movies didn't get a release
because
20th Century Fox got bought out.
Yeah.
And then Disney was like, they didn't know. They had a bunch of movies that they were just sitting on because they were like, well, what do we do?
What do we do with
movies,
these?
Right.
You know?
And this was a small one. Like this was like a smaller one.
Yeah.
So Angel came along. I forget the guy's name. Anyway, some Spanish name.
Okay.
He's a Spanish director, Mexican, I think. And he was trying to get his movie out of, hiatus, right? It was just kind of shelved. And he was like, man, he had gotten the budget to make it.
Okay.
And now it was just sitting there.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing anything. And so he got Angel Studios. He pitched it to Angel Studios, and they said, we love it. And so they went and bought it from Disney.
Oh, okay.
And then released it.
Okay.
And it was a monster hit.
Yeah.
Right. Huge hit. Put Angel Studios on the map actually in a way that even The Chosen hadn't yet.
Okay.
Because Hollywood took notice. All of a sudden Angel became a player as a studio.
Yeah.
And it changed their whole model, actually.
Oh, I'm sure.
So they became more of a movie production studio
than
a series production studio.
Okay.
Because now The Chosen is not even with Angel Studios because they are focused on movies, right?
Oh, okay.
Chosen is now, I believe, officially Amazon.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah,
but they still stream everything.
No, it's not even on.
It's
not even on their platform anymore. Chosen's not even on the.
Know that.
Platform. Yeah. No. I don't think a lot of people realize, but
that's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
you know,
insider.
Give me the deets.
You know, and so anyway, all that to say, Angel is beginning to actually move into a model where they make content from the ground up.
Okay.
And so because the guy who directed I said all that, it was a very long setup to say that they have an exclusive deal with the director of Sound of Freedom to make more movies. And now those are Angel produced, like not just distributed, but actually produced by Angel.
Okay.
Along with the director. And so they have a new one called, the trailer just dropped. It's called Zero AD.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It looks really good.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Really good. It's about the pursuit, I believe. It's about the pursuit of Jesus, Joseph, and Mary when they go to Egypt.
Okay.
And Herod trying to kill the baby.
Oh.
Pursuing them to Egypt.
Oh.
Right? It's the flight.
Okay.
It's the flight to Egypt.
Yeah.
So it's like focusing in on that part of the story.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's called Zero AD.
Zero AD.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Because Jesus, right? Like that's,
yeah.
He was born zero AD.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. It's like, cool. Okay. It's actually,
okay. That's interesting.
It looks pretty cool.
All right.
It got some huge, really big actors involved and stuff. So anyway, all I have to say, but for us, Angel is a distributor.
Okay.
They were on their platform, but they we produce the show.
Okay.
We're a local studio.
How does funding work for that then?
Yeah. So Angel, funding is hard. So if anybody's out there like, oh man, this guy, it's super hard. Don't feel bad if you're like, it's hard.
It's hard.
We've got something actually out, like a pilot episode, and people like it. Like the feedback's been good.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks good. Like people are like, the
quality. Yeah. I was just watching videos today on it. Like it's professional quality.
Yeah. And
like,
people were like, they were like, wow, Angel
cheap.
Studios made this. Like, no, an indie, we made this is indie animation.
Okay.
Right? Indie produced.
Okay.
And even with all of that, it's like, we have a killer pitch deck. Like, we've got probably the best cast you could have for this, right? For something like this. We've got Johnny Young Bosch, who, if you're an anime fan, he's prolific. He was the voice of Ichigo from Bleach. He's the voice of Kaneda from Akira. He's the voice of Broly from Dragon Ball. He's all these famous characters.
Okay.
And right now he's the voice of Dante from Devil May Cry on Netflix, right?
Okay.
He's just this,
it's like super talented.
Super talented. He was also the original Black Power Ranger in the Power Rangers movie from the 90s.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so,
that's fun.
Yeah. So he's awesome. He's Gabriel. He plays Gabriel.
Okay.
And then we've got, there's a show called, Miraculous on Disney with this character, this like ladybug superhero.
Okay.
Like the voice actress, she's super popular. She's our lead voice actress. We've got Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars show.
Oh wow.
He's in our cast. Obi-Wan Kenobi from Clone Wars is in our cast. And so we've just got this stellar cast.
Yeah.
And even with all that, people like just getting funding. People are like, okay, well, we'll see, let's see how it, right. And so, but where we're at, I believe with blessing, we are as close as we've ever been to closing around probably $5 or $6 million in funding to be able to finish the rest of the season. So we've got episode 1 out. We've got animatics. Now you know what that is. For the first 5 episodes.
Okay.
So,
and the animatics again is just like the base you send
it's the bones, right?
Yeah.
The bones of the episode. But it's got all the voice acting done.
Okay.
Right. So so it's the way the episode would look or sound and feel. It just doesn't have the polished animation.
I got you.
Top,
okay.
Right. And so we've got like 5 episodes done of that.
So cool.
And so yeah, so I truly believe that we're probably within just a few weeks of being able to go right back into full production and have the rest of the season, done, at least maybe beginning to launch, maybe by the end of this year, early next year.
Okay. That is so
like
cool.
the full season.
The full season.
But again, man, raising $2 million was very difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Very difficult. And it's taken 5 years. This is like from when I really got started.
Yeah.
it's been 5 years.
That's crazy. You know, it's always interesting to hear someone's, you know, obviously life story, but like in the beginning of the pod session, I was telling you, like, this has been like a life journey, whether from you having those thoughts as a kid to growing up to the way you thought about things and how you think you could develop it to you burying and kind of like forgetting about your dreams. And then it just took a little spark to go, all right, well, let's start diving into this. Let's start drawing. Let's start, you know, animating and seeing what that looks like. And then having that, just having that build and build and build and build, like it literally took you somewhere. Like, and I think that's the power of just dreams. Like, they're not dead. So like, if you just pursue it, you go after it and it just begins to build. And again, like that's,
and I think everybody has dreams. What people need encouraged in is perseverance.
Yeah.
Dude, because there have been, I couldn't tell you how many moments in the last 5 years it was like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
There was a moment when we had gotten so far and we had people, we had an investment group that had committed to funding the full season. And then they just at the last minute said, no, we can't.
Wow.
We don't have it. Industry shifted. We don't have the money. And we had prepped. I mean, we had spent money to get ready
for that investment.
For that investment. And staffed up and so like, and so we had to go back to the studio that we had lined up, an animation studio, our overseas studios, Tiger Animation. They do the animation for Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
They do the animation for Invincible, Castlevania, like big shows.
Yeah.
And we got on a call with them and we were getting on that call to say, hey, like, we're so sorry. Like we were supposed to start production with them, like in like weeks. And we were getting on a call. This was last January, February, something like that. We were getting on a call with them to say, hey, like it didn't happen. We're so sorry. Like we're going to have to pull the plug on this. And I prayed about it right before that call. And I said, Lord, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Like if I know that you can revive me and kind of re-up my stamina.
Yeah.
But I need to know you're still in this.
Yeah.
Like I need to know. I'm human and I need reminded that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Cause right now I just feel like throwing in the towel. Right. Yeah. It just felt like we had gotten this far. This is before
it's like, you can touch it, but like, it's right there, but you're here. And it's like,
just the block seems so big. And so we only had so much money. We didn't have enough to go into any kind of production. And these overseas studios, they sell animation like water. Like if you were to go and buy this at Kroger single, it's going to be like $2. But if you bought a pack over in the aisle, of 12, they're cheaper per, right? You're paying maybe $5 or $6 for a pack.
Yeah.
When you're paying $2 for a bottle.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how animation works.
Okay.
Right? Like the less minutes you're paying for, the more expensive it is.
Okay.
The more minutes you're paying for, the cheaper it gets.
Okay.
So most overseas studios that are big time, they won't even touch you if you don't have a season ready to produce.
Okay.
Right. We didn't have the money for that.
Yeah.
We had the money. Like we were like, maybe like we could pull some strings and raise a little bit more money and get one episode done.
Okay.
So I felt like the Lord said, just ask for that. And I said, okay, I will. But we were really getting on the call to say, hey, we're so sorry. We're going to have to cut ties. But at the end of the call, we told him what we needed to tell him. And I was like, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. Like, I think we probably have enough to do one episode, like to commit to one episode. And I know you guys have said that you couldn't do anything unless we could do at least 6. Like that was the minimum.
Okay.
I'm like, but this is where we're at. Like, I truly believe that if we could get just one episode made, like we can get the rest of our funding. Would you be open to that? And, they didn't speak English. So this is a Korean company.
Okay.
So, the translator goes to the guys and it's just like, oh, yeah, tell them. And then we're sitting there.
So that just builds
tension, dude.
That builds the whole thing. Like,
so then they're talking, they're like, oh, yeah, and then she comes back and she's like, yes, we will do. And I was like, wait, really? And she was like, and she basically said, they said, we think you're onto something. We believe that if we can help you get the pilot made, that you definitely will find funding for the rest of the series. And so we'll do it. We'll do it at the same price that we were going to do right. They kept the cost.
Okay.
They sold us a bottle at the price of a pack.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, so it was like 50 cents instead of $2 because there was no way that we would have been able to pay.
Wow.
Just so you know, animation prices are crazy per minute. For episode 1, we paid $7,500 per minute of animation. Right.
Per minute.
And that's not including all of our costs on the pre-production side. That's like just the cost of the animation. $7,500 per minute of animation. And they were the cheapest that we talked to.
Wow.
We had quotes for the standard was $15,000 per minute was what most.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And that was considered a bargain. And so for one episode, though, their prices was like $25,000 per minute.
Wow.
For that little bit of animation. If they were only doing 22 minutes, their price went up to $25,000 per minute. But they agreed to keep it at $7,500 for one episode, just believing in the project.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
the only reason that episode 1 is done.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What a cool story.
Yeah, dude.
That's wild. Yeah. So you have the production company outside the US that handles is that still the same company you're using now?
Yeah. Right now that's still that's our, they produced.
So after the first episode was produced, after that you got the rest of the funding to complete the first season.
We are like,
super
this takes
close.
So long, but we have a term sheet. We are, again, it's one of those things where we've been close before.
Yeah.
So the tentativeness in my voice is like, I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
Not that I really believe in that, but by all accounts, it looks like we'll be funded within the next like 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
But there's a saying that I've learned in the industry: you're not funded until the money's in the bank.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
You're not funded till the money's in the bank.
Yeah. Well, that's I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
And what I do is like, you're not booked till you get that deposit.
Yeah.
Like people
exactly.
they can promise all they want,
exactly.
but until you see that cash come in,
Yeah. Cause people are just, they're flaky and they're looking for deals. Like,
right.
They're always, they're
it's humans. Humans are humans,
it's not nothing personal. And so I really believe this is going to come through and we'll be
that is so cool.
Back into production. And we've got some really, if you've seen the first episode, I'm telling you, I actually believe that it's probably I think every episode gets better.
Okay.
Because we were learning.
You're evolving. Better. It's the development of the show.
If you liked episode 1, you're going to love the rest of the season.
Now, have you always wanted it to be anime? Like I'm curious to know what that process was, because I mean, having the foundation of Gabriel and the Guardians, like I feel like you could have taken that anywhere.
Yeah. It felt pretty natural for whatever reason for me. Like that was pretty quickly. That was
this is an anime production.
I was drawing them. And then what cinched it for me is as because we talked about like, well, what would the actual, the pitch is fine. Mm-hmm. And it was just me doing drawings, but we talked about like, well, what would be the best style for this? Should we make it a 3D show? Should we make it right? Okay. But as we looked at the market, there's nothing like anime right now.
Yeah.
I mean, anime is projected to be, its market cap is going to be over $30 billion within the next few years. Like it's at like 20.
I know it's become wildly more
this
popular.
This is a 20, like currently this is over a $25 billion company or industry worldwide.
Yeah.
Like market, right?
Yeah.
Like the market value is that high. That's how much revenue it's bringing in.
Okay.
Worldwide. and it's projected to continue to skyrocket. It's been on a skyrocket since like the early 2000s.
Okay.
Just, you know, going from essentially nothing in the world market to like
just exploding.
It is literally, actually, the data has just come out. It is in the top 3 fastest growing genres in the world of entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, and in the top 10 biggest money-making franchises in the world, in the top 25, anime holds like 10 of those spots.
Okay.
Like, and number 1 is anime.
Okay.
The top grossing franchise IP in the world is an anime franchise. Bigger than, has made more money than Marvel movies, made more money than Star Wars, made more money than anything else.
Wow.
It's Pokemon.
Yeah,
Pokemon is number 1.
Yeah. I'm not shocked by
Dragon Ball's in that list. You know, there's a number of other anime that are in that list. They're just, and then manga is now the fastest growing print media in the United States.
And manga
genre it's the fastest growing print genre.
Wow.
Like they're selling more manga faster. Like it's growing faster than fantasy books.
Okay.
Any other print media genre.
Okay.
Yeah. It's massive market. It on its own has a huge market cap potential.
Wow.
So that all played into why we were like, yeah, anime is probably the right move.
Yeah. Well, it fits so well too. Like I'm sure at the end of the day, when you realized, this is going to be an anime production.
Yeah.
It just works. Like, and now that like looking at these pictures and seeing the designs and stuff, it's like, I can't see this being a regular cartoon. Yeah. I feel like that takes away and it adds much more dramatization.
It lends itself to, I think, an epic scale. Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of times, like anybody who watches, I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender was a big influence for me as I was thinking about what I wanted this to feel and look like.
Okay.
Because Avatar we're not technically anime, right? We're anime inspired. We like to make that distinction because anime fans get very bent out of shape.
Okay.
Because anime is technically Japanese produced animation.
Yep.
So, you know, I'm making that for anybody out there. You heard it from me. We're not anime. We're anime influenced.
I
was influenced by anime. I grew up with it and loved it. And so it's a love letter to the anime art form, right? It's also a love letter to the Hebrew Bible because it's chock full of all kinds of symbolism and imagery. And I worked very, very hard to extract the themes of Genesis and the narrative and reinterpret it in a way that was like, because basically what we are is I like to say we are a fantasy interpretation of the narrative of Genesis.
Okay.
Set in a fantasy world that is inspired by the cultures found in Genesis.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if Chronicles of Narnia was, instead of set in a fictional fantasy world, Narnia is a fictional fantasy world that C.S. Lewis has said is inspired by Greek mythology, Arthurian legend, and other Northern European folklore.
Yeah.
That's the world that Narnia is. Our fantasy world is inspired by Paleo-Hebrew mythology and text.
Okay.
Like the Book of Enoch and Genesis, and then also inspired by the cultures that you find in Genesis, like Proto-Hebrews, which would be like what Noah and Abraham were. They weren't quite Hebrews yet because that hadn't become, but Sumerian, you know, the Sumer, other Mesopotamian cultures and legends, that's the world, that's the fantasy world that we've built.
Okay. So when you're developing characters for Gabriel and the Guardians, like I'm sure you'll have the villains, you'll have the friends in the show. Like, how do you what's your process and what does it look like to build the characters and, you know, for Gabriel to fight, you know, giants, and like, where do you get that inspiration from?
Yeah. So like I said, I really like to, I've really worked hard to try to weave a narrative that feels like if someone is in the know, if they are a Bible nerd, that they're going, oh, whoa. Like, I see what this is. I see what they're doing. Right. Okay. So like, while Gabriel in our story obviously isn't the real Gabriel, we're not trying to say like, this is the Archangel Gabriel.
Yeah.
This is a character in a fantasy world that's inspired by the legendary Gabriel that shows up in not just biblical texts, but in other texts, right? Gabriel shows up in Islamic texts, right? And so does Michael. And so these are legendary, iconic characters that are a part of our tradition, right? They're mostly known as Jewish and Christian icons, right? Legendary icons. Yeah. And I'm not saying I think they're mythical. I think they're real. But our version is an interpretation of that.
Okay.
Right? We're once upon a time.
Yeah.
There was a character named Gabriel, and he was an angel, right? He was a celestial being. And it's like, okay, so you're going to draw parallels between the biblical Gabriel and ours. But and we did this specifically to stay out of heretical. Like, we were like, you know what? The moment you say once upon a time, people give you a lot more space.
Yeah.
To kind of, you know.
Because then it becomes more of like an idea and not a factual statement.
Right.
It instantly invites someone into that space of, this is hypothetical.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
And so, yes, this is, and so what we're doing is we're taking the narratives, the themes, and we're remixing it. Right. Okay. So like, we've got a little bit of, you know, so like the main character, the main bad guy in season 1 is inspired by Cain.
Okay.
The biblical Cain.
Okay.
Right. And he's in our story. We have a character named Ea, who is God. Right?
Okay.
He's the creator. We don't use the word God. We just say he's the creator.
Okay.
And Ea is, if you know, actually the name that God calls himself in the Bible. We think Yahweh.
Yeah.
But Yahweh is actually what Moses called God. So
interesting.
Ea means I am. Okay. Yahweh means he is. Right.
Well, that's cool.
So God said to Moses, Ea, Asher, Ea. Yes. Ea, Asher, Ea.
Okay.
Which means I am that I am.
Okay.
And then Moses went and said, I come in the name of Yahweh. I come in the name of he is.
That's pretty cool.
Right. And so we were like, well, Ea has this really great, it's not as known. It doesn't,
right. Yeah.
It feels a little less Christian-y.
Yeah.
Right. Cause if we just said Yahweh, it fits within that kind of, we're trying to do like a mythological take and a fantasy take. And so Ea in our story, he created Ara, which is the world that Gabriel exists in. The word Ara is the Hebrew word for earth.
Okay.
Right. So we're just playing with
it. So you're pulling in like all these different contexts and languages to develop the show.
To develop our own kind of world building and mythology. And so we have a character named Cain, right? Which is spelled Qayin, which is actually the Hebrew spelling for Cain. Right?
Okay.
And so he's not Cain, but he's Cain.
He's Cain.
Yeah, he's Cain. And he is the son. He is the first son of Aphar, who is the first man created in the world. Holy cow. Right. And so he is the villain. He's 1,000 years old. Okay. And he's this villain of he's taken on the sorcerer, identity of Malacros.
Yeah.
And so he is and so we're telling this story, but he also has a little bit of a Saul of Tarsus.
Okay.
So we're kind of like, it's just a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. Yeah. And then we take the narrative, and we're really trying to follow that Genesis 6, 7, and 8 narrative though. Okay. It is the story of on Ara, these celestial beings that were there to protect and help, they fell. They defected, they rebelled against what they were supposed to be doing, and they've taken advantage of mortals and mankind, and they tricked them into basically giving up their birthright, which they were designed. Mortals in our story were created to take the fruit and the life of the tree eternal, which Ea planted in the center of Ara, and the rest of the world is essentially a wasteland planet. So the world of Gabriel and the Guardians, the actual mortal world, is called Ara. It's a wasteland planet.
Okay.
Right. And that's pulling from, we actually say it's wild and waste.
Okay.
Which is directly from Genesis, when it says the world was formless and void and wild and waste.
Okay.
It was a wild and waste, right? And so we're taking this idea that what did God, so God then made man, right?
Yeah.
He made Adam and Eve, and he placed Adam. So Adam wasn't made in the garden. He was actually placed. He was actually rested. The word is nuach, which is actually the same word for Noah.
Okay.
If we don't know that, that's a cool little thing. Adam was Noah'd into the garden.
That's a wild concept.
Placed, right? And what he was given was instructions by God to, if you know, have dominion, right?
Yeah.
To work and keep the garden.
Yeah.
Right? To take care of the animals and to rule and reign. Literally, the language there is like Adam and Eve are put to rule and reign,
right,
and have dominion and subdue the earth, which the word in Hebrew for subdue is actually more of a like to make as efficient as possible.
Okay.
To bring the most fruit from.
Okay.
Right. We think about it in like it's subdue has gotten this sort of like domination word around it to like bring into submission, but really the word was more about to partner with and to bring out the most fruit from. And so playing with that idea, we go, okay, in our version of the story, Ea created Ara.
Okay.
And he created the first man and woman.
Okay.
And at the center of Ara is this tree eternal, which is the source of all life for the world. And the tree has these seeds that Ea then says your purpose, your destiny is to take the fruit and the life of the tree that I've planted and given you and spread it across the entire world.
Okay.
To go and plant seeds everywhere. And everywhere you go, when you plant one of these celestial trees, it's going to slowly over time, as you do the work and you cultivate this land, it's going to bring life to the entire planet.
Okay.
You're going to terraform this planet and turn it from waste, because when we get into it, because Ea wanted to partner with mankind, not just give them a paradise, but partner with them in the creation of the world.
Okay.
And this really connects to what, if you really read Genesis 2, it's like 100%. It's what God is saying to Adam and Eve.
Like, so in developing the first episode, is every episode going to have like a play on off of each other?
Yeah.
So like per season. So like say season 2 and 3 comes out, it'll still be a play on from your original ideas.
Yeah.
But it's really building a life with these characters from beginning to.
Yeah. Yeah. So our goal is to like, we want to tell that first narrative, which is what we're calling the Nephilim narrative. Right?
Yeah.
It's this idea that
Nephilim.
This is 1,000 years later after mortals lose the paradise is what happens. So the story opens up and we're told this backstory of there was a great paradise. There was a great tree in Ara that was the source of life, and now it was taken.
Okay.
It's gone.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly why, but as you go, you find out that the mortals, they were tricked. They were deceived by these fallen beings to basically hand over their dominion. These dark beings, these fallen celestials want to rule and reign.
Yep.
And they tricked mortals into basically handing over their birthright for bowl soup, right?
Yeah.
As it goes. And so once they do that, Ea takes paradise from them, right? To protect it, actually. You find out it's like, he wasn't just being mean, but he left them 12 seeds. So he didn't leave them abandoned. 2, so they could still turn their world into what it was meant to be. Right?
Okay.
Even without the tree, even though he's protecting the tree and the source, he left them 12 seeds. And so when we come into the story, we're coming in 1,000 years later, where mankind was given, even though they sinned, they lost the tree, and pardem is what it's called. They were still given these 12 seeds, but they haven't done anything with it. Instead of doing what they're supposed to do with it, they all began to war against each other to try to obtain the seeds from each other.
Okay.
Rather than partner together. And so we come into a world that hasn't moved forward. It's still a wasteland because they haven't used the seeds the way they're supposed to be used.
So fun, dude.
And so Gabriel shows up, right?
Yeah.
And he's in the midst of this, and he's going to help mankind discover what Aya really designed them for.
That is so cool.
And then there's a lot of action and fighting and giants.
Oh yeah,
right?
That's so wild, man. That's so cool. I'm curious to know, because I'm really intrigued by, obviously, like everything you're saying in the language, but the language for the show, I think is such a crucial piece for people to watch and go, oh, this is Christian-y, you know, too Christian-y or whatever. But you're really you're creating a world, but you're also developing a real world firsthand experience for other people who, you know, may know nothing about God. And I love that.
That's it. And the reason that Hebrew felt so right, because it fit into the world building that we were trying to do, the mythological elements. It's like, well, you know, there's tons of shows out there that have Greek mythology. I mean, the popular Egyptian mythology, but there's not really Mesopotamian Paleo Hebrew mythology. It's not Hollywood's not using it. Hollywood's not really doing anything with it. So it's what's made, I think, we've been told, like, this is why Gabriel and the Guardians feels so fresh, because it doesn't feel like Egyptian. It doesn't feel like what the typical, you know, Roman, Greek mythology. It's this new mythology. And it's like, it's actually the oldest mythology in the world. It's actually the oldest. But the language lends itself so well to sound otherworldly. So all of the words that these are actually biblical. But if you don't know, you don't know. It sounds fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's
what
Ara, like, and, you know, Gabriel. And,
how did you get to the point where this is the language you're using for the show?
So David and I crafted this together. You know, he really is a co-creator in this thing. I brought him the kernels of the ideas, and then together. And so we're always back and forth. I always want to go really Hebrew.
Yeah.
Like really, really like directly. And he's always like, let's try to take it one. Like, let's always try to make this, remember, like, we're trying to tell a parable. You know, this is a fantasy parable. So like, let's mash words. Let's, you know, leave enough there that the nerds, like, that really get excited about theology and biblical, like, they'll get it. They'll know that this sounds like that. And it looks, and they totally are. Like, our Discord is hilarious because all the theories, lots of theological debate.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? I just love it because it's just Easter eggs everywhere.
Yeah.
But we landed on, like, okay, everything needs to be like, especially the celestial realm. Like, we want, and the realm that Knock, which is our character that is Noah, our version of Noah. His name is Knock. Which is short for Neoach, which is actually the Hebrew name for Noah. Right. Okay. So, but he's not Noah. He's, you know, he's a new character, fictional character, but he's inspired by Noah for sure. Okay. And you'll see that as the show goes on. But he fights giants, right? He's a giant slayer. Like, that's when we meet him. He's out there trying to, and then he meets this girl who is a princess of Cain, Ara, which is the city built by Cain. Okay. And she's the princess, and she worships the giants. Their culture worships them because they're the sons of the gods from their perspective. Okay. And so you get this great conflict between of these two cultures. And so Knock comes from the culture of the Bakora, which is, again, and then we layer it all with, like, some direct, but a lot of meshed up. So, like, Bakora is an inversion of the word baraka. Okay. Which is covenant. Right. Okay. And Bakora, we spell it differently. Okay. But Bakora in Hebrew is firstborn. So baraka is covenant. Okay. Bakora is firstborn. And then we called our tribe, the tribe that Knock is from, the Bakora. right?
That's so cool. So that's so creative
stuff.
That is so cool. I love that.
I'm probably getting a little into the nerdy weeds, but I like it. It's fun.
It just everything fits. Like I'm just like, it's so aligning with from the art, from the language, from the creating of names and how you spell things. Like that's just so cool, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
So going through this book, is this an actual like, I don't want to say comic book. What was the word?
Manga.
Manga.
Yeah.
Because I see like,
call it comic book.
Like like animation for Gabriel. So like there were like portraits.
So what that is a prequel story at the beginning. So the first, it's kind of a mishmash. It's like it was our first kind of thing. So it's two short stories.
Okay.
The first story is a prequel story. It's telling actually this story from 1,000 years before the series starts. So episode 1, that first story is actually 1,000 years before.
Okay.
And telling the story of these two characters, these two brothers, who do have a big part in the later story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a little bit of just a tee up, a world building prequel.
Okay.
And then we have another story that's actually a section from the episode.
Okay.
So that stuff with Gabriel is actually a part of episode 1.
Okay.
Like we're just kind of telling almost like a little tease scene.
Yeah.
In manga format.
Okay.
But when the next book comes out, we're hoping for maybe May or June, it will actually be a 50-page book that is telling the story of Gabriel that you see in the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
it's like,
so cool.
It's actually starting right at the beginning and kind of.
So looking at the animations, the title is Official Animation Expression Sheet for Gabriel. That
was used. I drew those.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. And that was actually, so that's showing work that was part of the design package that was sent to the animation studio. Okay. So that's how they knew.
That was my next question.
That was how they knew how Gabriel should look at different angles. Right. Okay. So when they're looking at the storyboards and they're having to draw and they see a rough stick figure drawing.
Yeah.
Now they know, okay, here's what the expression should be.
Okay. And animation turnaround for Gabriel. So showing like full body.
Right.
And you drew?
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Yeah. It's been fun. I mean, and look, I had to learn. Like I would say I was a decent artist.
Yeah.
Like I upped my game, dude. I spent the first 3 years like just drawing every day.
That's so I could,
because I knew I needed to get up to snuff if I was going to be. I needed this to be excellent. Like the one thing that we can't do is make art. Christians can't make art and that art be crappy.
Right.
We got to stop doing that.
Right.
It has to be great.
It has to be driven with
at least as good as what the world's producing. Right?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. 100%. Yeah. And so like when I look at these right here, and I'll hold up to the camera, style, design, whatever. When I look at these, are these like? How did you? So those ones
aren't me. So those are that's the test from the manga artist that did the story. So like that's his interpretation of the animation designs.
Okay.
So which usually you do in reverse. Usually the manga comes first and then an anime comes after it.
Okay.
But we already had all the design work that I'd done for the actual animation.
Okay.
And so then he just used those and kind of those were just tests.
It was like references.
Yeah, those were tests that he did to show his style. And like, this looks great. Like, he brought kind of a different, it felt a little more manga, honestly, than like what my stuff was.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Super rock star. How did you come up? Like, so I'm just super curious, but like even with the title, like Gabriel and the Guardians.
Yeah.
Like, how did you come up with that name for the show? How did you come up with the logo design and colors? So
the logo was done by a guy named Brandon Reich.
Okay.
He's actually local.
Oh, okay.
But he designs everything for 21 Pilots.
Oh,
he's their logo designer. He does He like does their videos.
Okay.
Like he's the
go-to guy.
He's the guy. He's the go-to guy. And then he also does all of the design and media for Jelly Roll.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a complete different side of the industry.
Yeah. And he's phenomenal.
So cool.
So I worked with him very closely on the logo. Because what I wanted was, we both agreed. Like he was like, I want this logo to be something that someone could wear on a shirt or a hat, and it just looks cool.
Yeah.
You don't even have to know what it is. The logo looks cool.
Yeah.
It's like, and so he came from bands, and that's how band logos look.
Yeah.
Band logos look cool.
Yeah.
And so he did a number of iterations, and we ended up kind of zoning in after some tweaks, and I kind of did some changes to it. And cause I come from design.
Right.
So, and we, but it was mostly him, and he just nailed it.
It just pops out.
It's just it's exactly what we wanted. It looks great on shirts,
and it's very niche specific to the show.
Yeah.
Like, cause you don't see any other shows or productions with that style of creation.
Yeah.
And it matches the whole branding.
Yeah.
Like,
and I have an eye for design and branding. Like that was kind of what I shifted to when I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to work in animation and make cartoons. I guess I really shifted towards design. Right. And so I have that, but the name actually does come from the Book of Enoch. Because in the Book of Enoch, it tells the Noah story.
Okay.
And expounds on it. And so the Book of Enoch, for those of you who don't know, this is a Second Temple text. It's not canon. It's not biblically canon. It technically is Apocrypha, but that Apocrypha gets a bad rap. Really what this was literature that the Second Temple Jews would have read, would have been a part of their reading. And in fact, we know that the Book of Enoch particularly was extremely popular.
Okay.
A very, very popular book. And so I like to liken it to, in school, you have textbooks. That's our canon. That's the canon Bible, the Old Testament.
Okay.
That's what they studied, like in school.
Yeah.
Like Hebrews. Jesus would have gone to, when he went to school, he would have studied the Torah and the Tanakh and in school.
Yep.
But then you've got books that are in the library that they're not textbooks, but they're still like recommended reading, things like that.
Yeah.
You can go and get out of the library, like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Right. Just popular books that school age kids are encouraged to read.
Right.
That would have been the Book of Enoch.
Okay.
An extremely popular Hebrew text that they would have actually considered like history. Like a lot of them, like at least some of the sects of the Hebrew. I can't remember if it was the Pharisees or Sadducees, but one of them very much were like, no, the Book of Enoch is, this should be canon.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but what the Book of Enoch tells is it expounds upon the narrative of the Nephilim and the Watchers and the story of Noah. And it is supposedly written by Enoch himself, who was the grandfather, I think, of the great grandfather of Noah.
Okay.
He would have been alive when Noah was alive.
Okay.
As well. And so he tells this story, the book that he tells of how the Watchers come down and disobey God. And they, in secret, begin to procreate with the human women, and the offspring become these just plagues of the society and of mankind. And it says that these giants, these original giants, these Nephilim, were huge. I mean, like they're described as being like skyscraper size, right? In the Book of Enoch.
Okay.
And it says that the rivers flowed with blood. There was so much bloodshed from these giants. They were bloodthirsty. Like they ate humans, right? They would eat them.
Okay.
Like, it was like they were just killing. And it says that the blood of the sons of Adam cried out to the Lord. So the blood, when it hit the soil of the earth and the blood cried out to the Lord.
Okay.
And the Lord heard it, right? And so the Lord then assembles a team. Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, these guardian angels.
Okay.
That are then sent to annihilate the Nephilim. And they do. They come down to earth, and there's this epic battle in the book of Enoch, and they annihilate all the Nephilim. And then they capture the fallen celestial beings, the Watchers, and they imprison them under the earth. And so I was just like, okay.
I love hearing how all this is unfolding for you, like, because that's so spot on. Yeah, like it's so clear now.
I was like, man, this is it. This is the Marvel universe of the Bible, right? And so I began to iterate out of that and think about, like, here's what's interesting. We actually know, like, Jude talks about, like, Jude is extremely Enochian, the book of Jude in the Bible, in the New Testament. Peter, extremely Enochian. He talks about in the days of Noah, and he talks about the Watchers that are imprisoned in the earth.
Okay.
Right? There's Peter, 2 Peter, I think. So this is how you know Peter was a fan of the book of Enoch, and his theology, the way he was thinking about the cosmos and the spiritual realm, was extremely Enochian, very influenced by the book of Enoch.
Okay.
And so the book of Enoch in some Christian circles gets a bad rap because it's like, oh, it's apocrypha, you shouldn't be reading it. It's like, no, it's actually very, like, you should read it. Actually, I think you should, because you don't have to take it as biblical. You don't got to pray over it or like, use it as your daily scripture.
Right.
But to understand the way that the disciples and Jesus were thinking about the world and the spiritual realm, Enoch is, I say it's must read.
Okay. Man, that's so cool. So eventually, do you bring in other characters?
Yeah.
For Guardians, and
episode 2, Michael shows up.
Okay.
So
you're developing a platform for the other
we're gonna bring
characters.
We're gonna bring in the other we call them arch princes.
Arch princes, okay.
Because we're just trying to not say angel. And
yeah.
Within the, like, outside, it's like, yeah, he's pretty much an angel. He's got a halo.
Yeah.
But, like, within the show, we don't use the word angel. We use the word malachim.
Malachim.
Which is actually the Hebrew word for angel.
Okay.
So
okay.
That's what we call angel. Like, Gabriel's race is the malachim.
Okay.
Right.
Wow. So as you develop these characters and as the show progresses, are you going to be, is there talks to create spin-off shows?
Yeah.
Or these other characters? I mean, because you got to think long-term, right? Like,
so we're talking to a pretty big actor.
Okay.
Who is in love and has agreed. Like, he wants to come on. I don't want to say who yet, but he's pretty big.
Liam Neeson.
It is. It's Liam Neeson. No, but I will say this. He was the lead of a superhero movie. Like, he played the superhero.
Oh, that's cool.
And so he's a believer. He loves the idea and wants to play Michael.
I'm gonna guess it when we're done with this.
Okay, yeah, don't say it now.
I think I know who it is. Yeah. I know who you're talking about. That's so cool.
So yeah. So we're like, I think we're aiming to try to announce him at Comic-Con.
Okay.
San Diego Comic-Con this year.
That's so cool.
That's our plan.
Yeah. So have you done a Comic-Con with this yet?
Yeah, we've done Galaxy Cons, which is one of the biggest independent comic book conventions. The big, like, they do the Columbus Comic-Con.
Oh, okay.
So the biggest, and it recently became the biggest convention, I think, in Columbus.
Okay.
I think maybe second to the Arnold.
Okay.
Like, I mean, they brought in, I think, 35,000 people.
Wow.
To GalaxyCon, and it's in December.
Okay.
And so we've been there. We do panels.
Okay.
We did GalaxyCon Raleigh, which was like 50,000 people.
Wow.
And we did a panel there, not knowing like how it was going to go. Like, I don't know. I'd done a couple panels before and had like 100 people show
Yeah.
up, that was great. And even in this, I was like, man, I just hope like 100 people. Like, it'd be great if we got 100 people.
Yeah.
Dude, we packed the room.
That's awesome.
500 people.
That's awesome.
That came to hear about Gabriel and the Guardians, and we had our voice actors there. They signed books.
That's so
showed
cool.
up, and then we actually surprised them by showing the animatic of episode 1.
Okay.
This was last year. So
okay.
Yeah. So we've done some. We're going to be doing Columbus Animate in June.
Okay.
And Johnny Young Bosch, the voice of Gabriel, is going to be there, and we're doing a screening of the episode at the Gateway.
Okay.
During the convention, and Johnny's going to come to the screening.
Wow.
And so we'll have him there, and we'll watch it at the Gateway.
That's cool.
And it's going to be good.
What's the event happening at the Strand? I just saw that.
Next Thursday. I don't know when this comes out, but
soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next Thursday. We are doing our hometown red carpet premiere.
Okay.
At the Strand. The Strand's partnered with us. Cohatch has partnered with us. Radio U's promoting it.
I heard on Radio U yesterday. I heard them.
Yeah. And so because Peabod, who is a artist on Radio U, wrote the end song of the episode.
Okay.
So the end track of the episode, he was inspired by the idea and wrote a song inspired by it. And now it's on the radio. It's the song that's playing on. It's called Headfirst. And so anyway, he's going to come on virtually and do a Q&A. So that's next Thursday at the Strand. You can get tickets. They're free on the Eventbrite.
That's so cool.
So
that is so cool.
And we're going to do an after party. So, but the after party costs because we had to cater it. But if you want to support the show, buy a ticket to the after party and come and party with us after the screening. Because it's going to be like a Fresh Start is catering.
Okay.
And they're doing breakfast themed hors d'oeuvres.
Nice.
It's all going to be like Saturday morning cartoon themed.
Nice.
The whole after party. So it'll be fun.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, in conclusion, how do people find the show? How do they watch the show? Where can they watch the show?
Yeah.
How do they get in contact with the show, support the show, all the things?
So you can go to GabrielandTheGuardians.com and watch the episode. It is free to watch, but you do have to sign up for an account, just like any other
any streaming service.
So the episode's free. You can watch it for free. You just got to put your email in, basically, and then you can watch the episode. You can go to the Angel app and watch it, or you can go to
Studios.
angelstudios.com or Angel app on your phone or device or TV. Or you can go to GabrielandTheGuardians.com and watch it. And you can go to Ripascend.com and purchase the manga.
Okay.
Because that's out.
This.
Yeah. And and if you're local, I'm going to be at Fresh Start on Saturday doing a signing.
That's cool.
And then the red carpet premiere. So if you've ever wondered what it is to be on the red carpet, we'll be taking pictures.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
the whole paparazzi.
The step and repeat will be there.
Okay.
With all, like Gabriel all over the place.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna be fun. Yeah,
that's cool. Good. And then social media.
Yes. Yeah. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook,
all the major
Twitter,
platforms. Just Gabriel and the Guardians.
Yep, Gabriel and the Guardians.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's dope. Anything else you want to share?
No, man, this was fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, man, it was really super fascinating. I loved hearing everything and how everything's developed, and it's just wow because everything you're saying is literally everything from design to concept to stories and what you're doing in the future. So
yeah, it's. I think that I will leave you all with this.
As he stares, gazing upon the camera.
Because now I know which camera to look in. Yeah, remember, if you believe in something, if you got an idea, and I bet you do, because you were created to be creative, don't let anybody stop you from doing it. Just go after it, pursue it. And if you believe in it, other people will too. Other people will believe in it if you believe in it. So
I love it. Well, subscribe to Bears Don't Fly on YouTube and Spotify. And of course, find it on all the socials at Bears Don't Fly. And we'll see you later.
Cool.
It's awesome, man. That's so good.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it.